Any person who has ever lived has experienced certain cultural practices and beliefs that have shaped the person that they have become. Many times, these beliefs come from a certain culture or religious group in which they are a part of. Each day, we are surrounded by different beliefs and practices that have an impact on our lives. Some may be good, whereas others not so much. Society today is formed by the beliefs and practices of our different cultures. Therefore, our society is a reflection of our current beliefs and practices. There's constantly different issues and arguments because everyone has different opinions on their own beliefs and practices. Some people feel that certain things are right, whereas others do not, causing much controversy. There's plenty of different and current topics that are always in the news and on the internet, such as global warming, healthcare, recycling, and cohabitation before marriage. These are just a few that I've chosen, but I know that there are many more. Out of these, the most compelling topic that had an impact on my life was cohabitation before marriage. Cohabitation is defined as the status of couples who are sexual partners, not married to each other, and sharing a household. Basically, people who are living together who are considered boyfriend and girlfriend, but have not made the commitment of marriage yet. I chose this topic because I have known many people in my life and in my family who have decided to cohabitate before marriage or even after divorce instead of getting married. And also, I have recently gotten engaged, and I thought it would be great to know the pros and cons of cohabitation. I have always been a huge advocate of marriage. This may be because it was the way I was raised or because of the religious traditions and practices that I have learned over the years. My religion, it is known to remain separated until you are married, and then you can move in with each other. I just don't follow it only because it's my religious beliefs, but morally I think that it's the best decision. I wanted to know that me and my fiance had made the best decision for our relationship by living apart until marriage. Obviously, the times have changed. In generations past, it was unheard of to cohabitate with your partner unless you were married. It was just a common belief and practices that everyone in their society followed. And people who were not were normally reprimanded or cast out. According to an executive summary about cohabitation by David Pompano and Barbara Whitehead, only 30 years ago, living together for unmarried heterosexual couples was against the law. Now, the study is about 10 years old, but that's still a significant statistic. That makes it only 40 years ago that cohabitation before marriage was against the law. Cohabitation went from being against the law to something that is practiced every day, all throughout society and throughout the world. A 5-year study sponsored by the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development estimates that between 60 and 70% of couples today will live together before marriage. That is a huge percentage. That is over half of all couples that are in a relationship decide to cohabitate instead of the commitment of marriage. That means that more than half of them are putting themselves at risk and most likely are unaware of it. Now you're probably wondering, what are the pros and the cons of cohabitation before marriage? And I need to explain to you why cohabitation is not the best of ideas. The only pros that seems to be available for cohabitation is, according to Pompano's and Whitehead's summary, couples who live together can share expenses and learn more about each other. Well, this sounds like a great idea. You can simply move in with your boyfriend or girlfriend, get to know them a little bit before making the huge commitment of marriage. But the only thing is, there's a lot of risks that are involved. Also, people don't have to worry about the risk of divorce and the legal troubles that comes upon, and the pressure that can put on someone's life. Now, the cons definitely outweigh the pros. Research has found that cohabitation before marriage can increase the risk of breaking up after marriage, increase the risk of domestic violence for women, increase the risk of physical and sexual abuse for children, and lead to lower levels of happiness and well-being than married couples. These risks seem so crazy to understand that people are doing this every day and do not even realize it. They're putting themselves at risk only because they decide to cohabitate instead of making the commitment of marriage. Research by Ellen McCarthy also shows that men who cohabitated before marriage were on average less dedicated to their relationships than those who didn't. As a woman and someone who is engaged, I will want my boyfriend to care for me just as much and be able to make that commitment to me. And if they weren't, I would not want to have to live with them and share my life with them, even down to expenses. And that brings up another issue: financial issues. Obviously, if you're living together, you're sharing bills, you're paying for each other's stuff. Even though you may have separate accounts in your bank, that still doesn't mean that money is not being shared. Obviously, because if you cohabitate with someone, you are not legally joined together as in a marriage. Once the relationship is ended, money cannot be legally separated. After all these issues that these adults have to go through, the ones who really suffer the most are the children. Obviously, the parents are the ones who are putting themselves in these situations and putting themselves at higher risk, which is okay. But the children did not ask to be put into this environment. As mentioned earlier, children have a higher risk of physical and sexual abuse. I couldn't imagine as a single mother to move in with someone and put my child at risk for them to be physically or sexually abused. I could not live with myself knowing this. Also, you have to take into consideration that young children get attached to people very easily, especially if they're not used to ever having a mother or father in the picture. Once there is one, they become very attached. Obviously, people who cohabitate for longer increases the risk of children having to deal with attachment issues and depression once the relationship ends. Children do not understand that just because things doesn't work out with the parents that the person has to leave. They're going to feel left out and possibly face a little bit of depression. In conclusion, I personally do not understand why more and more people are choosing to cohabitate before marriage with all these negative statistics. But research is showing that the numbers of cohabitating couples is rising and continue to rise each year. Either this generation is either too used to divorce, which is quite possible because every year there's more and more divorces, or they're obviously afraid to make lifetime commitments. This may be because they're used to their parents getting divorced and they don't want to have to risk that, or they just don't want to settle down. There's many reasons why people may choose to do this, and some may have pretty good reasons, but I'm still glad that I have not put myself in this category. I couldn't imagine putting me and my fiance, at these risks. I want my marriage to be special and to last a lifetime. But if we were to have lived together before we decided to get married, we would automatically place ourselves at more risk of getting divorced and having more problems. So I'm so glad that I've made the decision to live separately until we are married. Now, I'm not saying that cohabitation is a terrible thing, and I'm not trying to judge you, but I just want the facts to be shown. So next time you think about cohabitating with someone who you're in a relationship, you may want to think twice.